Thank you very much. So we will go immediately over to Thomas Steiner, who will comment, and then after that we'll have panel politicians. Let's see if I can change here over to the right one.
Thank you very much. I agree very much with just about everything what was said. I'm trying to find a new way of saying the same thing. I think we have come to a point where most reasonable researchers agree on so much that what remains is largely a pedagogical effort. A number of simple principles need to be explained and understood more broadly. So we need to get people to listen. That's why I put my hat on. I thought maybe this helps with focus. I actually was pleased to see Ottmar spoke about the Burke et al. Study. I was a referee on that study for Nature, and Nature asked me to write a comment about it. Nature thinks this is a very important piece. They don't usually do this, and that it needed a little further explanation. It's really an important article, and it shows just how serious climate change is, and it shows it in a very pedagogical manner with this simple curve showing that economic output actually works best at reasonable temperatures. When it gets too warm, it is not just agriculture that is affected, but human productivity is affected. And I have a colleague who's doing studies in India, and he can see in the manufacturing industry, in the diamond polishing industry, in the steel industry, all kinds of industries, when the temperature gets close to or above 30 and close to 40 and above 40, people just cannot work as well as with more reasonable temperatures. They have all the incentives. They're only paid if they produce, and they're poor. But it's just physiologically impossible. This is very depressing. So I do, like Ottmar, I start with the depressing news here. Climate change is coming and will be very serious. But I'm here to speak of policy and prices. We all know that, and I think we have an almost exaggerated view of this, that Copenhagen was this big failure, and that Paris was a success. And just like Ottmar, I agree, the goals are ambitious, and it is vital. I think there are some people who cynically say that Paris didn't achieve anything because no instruments were really decided. But it is a very vital first step that we got world unity. We kind of got rid of the climate deniers from the debate. There is unity that we need to do something. That is the first important step. But now we need to roll up our sleeves very quickly and start thinking about real instruments. Because, again, just as Ottmar was saying, the fossil prices are falling rapidly. Coal, oil, gas prices are falling rapidly. And so I'm trying to find a pedagogical way of talking about this. And I have this photo to help me here. And I want to ask you, each of you, when you read the newspaper in the morning, if you read that oil prices or coal prices have fallen, are you happy or are you sad? I saw a few people shaking their head about happy. So who is upset? Are there any people who are upset when they read about oil prices being low? Raise your hands, please. This is a voting. Yeah. Are there any people who are happy when they read about this? One? Just, you're brave. That's good. I think there are reasons for both. If we think about making solar investments profitable, we should be upset. If we worry about efficiency, changing norms, getting people to take bike or install solar cells or heat pumps or whatever, we should be worried. We should be worried about the effects of leakage, because we might be doing things, as Sweden and Germany in fact are, but then the global price of fossil fuels is falling, and other countries, there will be a temptation to use more. But there are equally many reasons to follow the brave and lonely voice who is happy here. Ottmar showed this gigantic reservoir we are sitting on, 15,000 gigatons of coal under the ground. How are we going to keep it in the ground? We have had a very painful debate about trying to close some of Vattenfall's mines in Germany, which is complicated for all kinds of obvious reasons that the mines are in Germany. Vattenfall shouldn't have bought them in the first place, and all kinds of things like that. But it is always going to be difficult to close mines. And we need to stop new investments. We don't want fracking all over the whole world. We want to stop the tar sands, and so forth. And if any of that is going to happen, it's obviously easier if the profits available in those industries are low. So, we want high prices for the consumers and low prices and low profits for the fossil producers. There is a solution to this. This is just a new way of selling our favorite word. We need a tax that creates a wedge between the producer price and the consumer price. This is a social, global, social, public good problem. And today is a fantastic opportunity to do this because the global fossil prices have fallen. If we tax now, when I say we, I mean globally, really importing countries. If the importing countries take the opportunity of taxing now, then they don't have to worry too much about a consumer reaction, because the prices just fell. You can add a tax, and the consumers will not notice much of a difference in their price of gasoline, kind of thing, because you're compensating the recent fall with taxes. We don't have to worry. Some people think we shouldn't worry about the green paradox anyway, but the green paradox is a theory saying that if you announce that you will in the future tax carbon, then the prices might fall. Fossil fuel. Well, that just already happened. It seems the market expected this, or whatever. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons why fossil fuel prices fell. Now is a great opportunity. They can't really fall again. They just fell from $150 to $30 per barrel. They can't do that again. They can fall to 20 perhaps. But it is a perfect opportunity for the importing countries to tax all fossil fuels. This will also have the obvious advantage of prolonging the period in which fossil fuels continue to be cheap. And that provides obvious benefits for the importing countries. This is I don't generally believe in win-win-win stories, because I mainly come from overexcited consultants, but this, I think, is actually an opportunity where there are multiple benefits to one policy. I had the opportunity, it was fun for a young, well, I'm not young, just a citizen from a small country like Sweden, to go to an important place like Capitol Hill, because I was working for an environmental organization, NGO, for a year in New York, called the Environmental Defense Fund, and so I got to go. We built a model. My staff at EDF built a model to show how much revenue a carbon tax would give, and I got to go to present this to various congressmen and senators in the US, and that's a fun thing to do as a Swede. And the same thing happens every time. They say, well, that's a lot of revenue. And this was the moment when the government was closing down because of lack of funds. So they kind of liked the revenue. We were talking about $5 or $10 tax. And then they said, but on the other hand, this is going to be, this just is politically impossible, such a high tax. And then it was kind of fun to say that I come from a little country far away. We actually have a carbon tax of $150 a ton. And the most important fact about this is that nobody really suffers or pays a lot of attention. I mean, now you're here because this is a tax seminar, but when I give my classes to Swedish students, I sometimes ask them, how much have you thought about the carbon tax today? And the answer is typically that they haven't. But my American audiences, they imagine that we are suffering and so depressed that we could never get out of the bed, let alone into the car to drive to the lecture, because everything would be so miserable when living under $150. It's actually gone down because the dollar appreciated, so it's $120 at the moment. But basically, as you know, Sweden goes on, life goes on in Sweden, and the Swedish economy is not doing worse than other economies because of carbon tax. And we wouldn't expect it to as economists either. So, I'm finishing in a moment. I agree with Otmar again. We need to start with the subsidies. It is outrageous that carbon, various forms of fossil fuels are still being subsidized in so many places. It's particularly stupid in the importing countries, of course. The exporting countries have some maybe selfish reasons to have such policies. I think Sweden should be proud of its carbon tax. It's the highest in the world, it's one of the oldest in the world. It's something we need to spread more information about. I travel a lot and I lecture abroad, and most people don't know that Sweden exists, and they don't know that we have a carbon tax and that the Swedish economy has survived, let alone is doing well. Now, theoretical, professional economists wouldn't necessarily expect a big effect on macroeconomic performance due to a tax reform, because we lowered some other inefficient taxes and then carbon tax is part of the package and so on. But I'm speaking of ordinary people and of politicians. They think that a carbon tax would be, by definition, extremely damaging, and this really is not the case. I also think that we need to defend and expand this tax. It's been limited. There are exceptions. Every time I look, there kind of seem to be more exceptions, and of course there are lobbyists who try to get exceptions. We need to think about bringing in a few of the non-EU ETS industrial sectors. There is a biofuels problem that has to do with the biofuels directive that we need to think about. I know it's quite a big problem. And so there are things to be done. But it is important. We should be offensive and we should be proactive. We should say to the European community, the European Commission, and to the world community that the carbon tax is working well, and we want to promote it and spread it. Thank you.